There's no way, right? There's no way Stephanie White is going to sit there on the sidelines, watch DiJonai Carrington clearly target and clothesline Sophie Cunningham, and then get on the podium in front of reporters and defend DiJonai Carrington, right? There's no way, right? Right. Stephanie White goes on the podium and refuses to back up her player.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a hard foul. I don't think that DiJonai intentionally came out to get her across the neck like she did, but it did happen, and I thought it was the right call. But, you know, one of the things about Nay is that she's going to play her butt off, man. She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup. And so I don't oppose the hard foul. But I also don't think that she...
Only professional sports can create a strange kind of humor that usually appears in the gap between what someone does and what they later say. After going online, DJ Carrington somehow turned a blatant foul into a conversation about white privilege. Stephanie White, Sophie's coach, appeared far more focused on explaining Carrington's intentions than protecting her injured player. This becomes even more uncomfortable when you consider White's previous relationship with Caitlin Clark.
Well, so the internet is bombing on Stephanie White once again. Instead of her just having her team's back, she always finds some encouraging words or something positive to say about the players that are violating her team. It's very weird. Now, before we even hear what she has to say, I just happened to stumble upon this. Look at this nasty human being's demeanor. This is after she poked Clark in the eye 2 years ago. Just look at her.
DiJonai, did you, when you went and kind of swatted...
Well. So the internet is bombing on Stephanie White once again. Instead of her just having her team's back, she always finds some encouraging words or something positive to say about the players that are violating her team. It's very weird. Now, before we even hear what she has to say, I just happened to stumble upon this. Look at this nasty human being's demeanor. This is after she poked Clark in the eye 2 years ago. Just look at her.
DiJonai, did you, when you went and...
DJ Carrington's ejection after the collision was not the strangest part of this WNBA incident. It was what happened afterward. This week, a WNBA player committed one of the most disturbing fouls you are likely to see on a basketball court, turning the playing area into a scene of chaos. Hit subscribe for non-stop WNBA news, exclusive updates, and unforgettable highlights.
The cesspool that is the WNBA continues to top itself. If you didn't check out my video yesterday or last night after the game, check that out. DiJonai Carrington with a ridiculously over-the-top dirty play on Sophie Cunningham, tried to take her head off, actually rightfully does get ejected with a flagrant 2, and then immediately in the locker room starts posting to threads, making it about race.
Sophie Cunningham quickly went to social media in an effort to draw attention to racial intolerance and unequal treatment. Her own head coach then stepped forward and explained what had happened as though it was simply an example of playing aggressively, rather than clearly condemning the foul.
If I was the commissioner of the WNBA, which I never will be, I would have every single player in a group chat, and I would be like, ladies, you are potentially going to be fined if you do anything that your conduct is perceived to be detrimental to the league. You guys got an average of $600,000 coming in as your salaries, with the high end being $1.4 million, and you continue to sabotage what's going on, which is a Tiger Woods moment.
If you think that sounds like a plot twist that could never actually happen, you are not alone. But this is exactly what unfolded involving DJ Carrington, Sophie Cunningham, and Stephanie White, the head coach of the Indiana Fever. And the fallout has created one of the most revealing moments of the league's season.
Stephanie Dingbat White, bonehead, the lady has no idea what she's doing. She's in over her head. She's way over her head when it comes to this job. She needs to go back to being head coaches of teams that nobody really gives a damn about. And it's that simple. Take a listen to Stephanie White defending DiJonai Carrington. This is disgusting. If I'm Sophie Cunningham, I'm pissed. My mouth was bleeding. She tried to take my head off, and you at the podium talking about, oh.
Context matters more than almost anything else. So, let's begin with the play itself. Sophie Cunningham was driving toward the basket, attacking the rim and trying to finish through contact, exactly as basketball players often do in that situation. DJ Carrington came across with an arm that swung directly into the head and neck area instead of making a normal closeout or chest-to-chest contest. This is the kind of contact officials are trained to recognize immediately because it is not about challenging a shot and instead appears focused on stopping the player. Very few players can take contact like that and simply walk away unaffected. So Cunningham managing to finish the layup despite the impact should have been the main focus of the moment, especially with her legs holding steady and blood in her mouth. This is where the story changes from a simple hard foul into something far more complicated. Within minutes of being sent to the locker room, DJ Carrington went directly to social media and presented the incident through the lens of race, using the phrase white privilege as if the officials had somehow protected Cunningham because of her skin color rather than because the camera clearly showed an arm striking someone's head. That was very different from the usual post-game explanation about playing emotionally and allowing things to go too far.
Very clear. Sophie Cunningham is going to... She very rarely is going to lie, but she's always going to throw gasoline on the flames. She's never going to... Sophie Cunningham's never going to make a situation any better. Okay, whatever you want to say about Sophie Cunningham, she's throwing gasoline on the flames every time. She is not making she's not...
There was no attempt to calm the situation. There was no attempt to take responsibility. Instead, the focus immediately moved toward a narrative that had very little to do with the basic details of the play. And that shift deserves attention because it shows how quickly certain incidents in this league can be reframed once the cameras start recording. If the roles had been reversed, think about how quickly that argument would collapse. Imagine Sophie Cunningham had been the one who struck Carrington in the head with the same forearm, received the same ejection, and then posted something about race immediately after reaching the locker room. For an entire week, that story would likely dominate the news cycle and be treated as a major scandal. It would become another example of the exact behavior many people already expect from certain parts of the league. Yet when the situation goes the other way, the response becomes quieter, more cautious, and almost apologetic about calling the incident exactly what it was. In other words, the player raising the issue of race is also the player who committed the foul, rather than the person who took the hit. That double standard is not simply a coincidence. It is a pattern, and patterns are what turn isolated incidents into a genuine problem for the league.
Cunningham, and then get on the podium in front of reporters and defend DiJonai Carrington, right? There's no way, right? Right. Stephanie White goes on the podium and refuses to back up her player, Sophie Cunningham. Stephanie White, like we've said this time and time again, a snake in the grass. She needs to go.
The story would already be significant if it ended there, with one person making a questionable decision during a chaotic moment. But it did not stop there because Stephanie White went to the post-game podium and did something that no coach should be comfortable doing. She defended the player who injured a member of the opposing team instead of acknowledging what her former player, whom she coached for years in Connecticut, had just done on the court. The softness in White's wording says almost as much as the words themselves, which makes her exact language worth examining. That is an extraordinary amount of understanding for a play that any neutral observer, official replay review, or honestly, a casual fan watching at home, could consider excessive and dangerous. It is difficult to ignore the contrast between that language and the way coaches normally describe serious fouls committed against their own players. The response is usually firm, protective, and unmistakable when one of your players is hurt. But the language seems to become much softer when someone you once coached is responsible for hurting an opponent.
I don't even know why I would intend to hit anybody in the eye. That doesn't even make sense.
But she's doing this for clout. She thinks this is cool. She thinks this is funny. She's a real nasty person, yo.
To me, but no, I didn't. I didn't know I hit her, actually.
You didn't know you hit her?
I was trying to make a play on the ball, and I guess I followed through and I hit her. So obviously it's never intentional. That's not even like the type of player that I am. So yeah.
Do y'all know how many people she's hurt?
This is where the story moves beyond this single incident because Stephanie White's history of handling Indiana's roster and Caitlin Clark in particular goes back well before the Carrington situation. During a game in Clark's first season, Alyssa Thomas hit her in the throat with her forearm. The play was clearly aggressive and unrelated to a normal basketball motion, which brought national attention. Yet there was still hesitation to describe the dangerous play for what it was, along with arguments defending the physical nature of the league and suggesting that this was simply how WNBA basketball is played. That same feeling is present now with White sitting on Indiana's bench. But this time, the injured player is technically on her own team, wearing the same uniform and playing for the organization she is paid to lead and protect, making the situation much harder to dismiss. What should make people stop and think is the consistency, because it suggests this is not simply one poor decision from a coach responding to a reporter's question. Instead, it points toward a pattern of minimizing dangerous physical plays whenever the player responsible happens to have some personal or professional connection with White, whether through a former coaching relationship or simply through a willingness to defend certain behavior on the court.
Should suspend DiJonai Carrington for the rest of the 2026 season. We know that won't happen, but it is what she should do. But wait, there's more from the Indiana Fever coach herself, Stephanie Metheny White, Carrot Top herself. Carrot Top might be a better basketball coach, but the resemblance is absolutely uncanny. You have got to take a listen to this. Stephanie White was asked about the foul.
However you try to explain those post-game comments, the optics become extremely difficult to defend when the pattern involves protecting the aggressor instead of a player on your own current roster whose safety and future are directly part of your responsibility. Now, let's look at what should actually happen, because leagues often talk about accountability until accountability requires a difficult decision. The obvious step would be for the league office to review more than just the foul itself, which has already resulted in an ejection. It should also consider the broader circumstances, including the player's previous pattern of behavior, the apparent intent suggested by earlier online activity, and the public comments from a head coach who should understand the seriousness of the situation. But whether the league truly takes that approach is a different question. If recent experience tells us anything, the response may once again favor business as usual instead of meaningful consequences. The way these incidents repeatedly pull attention away from what should define this era of the WNBA, the level of talent currently on the floor and the audience that talent has brought in, is especially frustrating for fans who simply want to watch competitive and entertaining basketball. Very few athletes in any sport have had the ability to change attendance numbers, television ratings, and the broader sports conversation the way Caitlin Clark has alone. It is believed that Sophie Cunningham has her